Australian Foreign Minister Penny Wong has probably never sat in the back of an Uber while her Indian driver ignores her and mutters in Hindi into his phone to some relative in Mumbai instead. Nor has she dodged Indian students on inner city footpaths making express deliveries for Deliveroo, or got a disinterested blank look from an Indian store worker who doesn't speak English. Such experiences, vibrant though they are below Wong's pay grade. On the frequent occasions that she does interact with Indians, the conversation is in bold, clear English, and the topics are ambitious and consequential: clean energy, advanced manufacturing, tourism, education, resources, and the jewel in the pagri, the Indian diaspora. Wong has compiled her interactions with her Indian counterparts into a 133-page document called A New Roadmap for Australia's Economic Engagement with India, released 4 days ago. The nauseating earnestness of it all begins before the report even starts. The routine acknowledgement to country on the inside cover includes: "We recognise the unique and important contribution that First Nations businesses have made and continue to make to strengthening our economic ties with India." Well, those First Nations businesses are not quite as big as our coal exporters, whose $15 billion worth of sales represent about half of Australia's total exports to India. But Wong knows not to make too fine a point of that, and mentions coal only in passing amid more fashionable and sometimes just plain bonkers areas of trade and cultural interaction that fit more comfortably into her green woke agenda. More than any of her cabinet colleagues, Wong gives the impression that end goals don't matter as much to her as the hors d'oeuvres, hobnobbing and hubris. The process is the replenishment, you might say, which for her goes on forever, while the consequences on the ground for we ordinary punters are never the ones we were promised. Ironically, for a report that spruiks technology, a new roadmap reads, in the age of Google Maps, like a Gregory's Street Directory from 1984. It's a book full of destinations with no clear instructions about how to get there. Politically, of course, that's the point. It employs legions of bureaucrats who are fluent enough in jargon to make Wong's constant jet-setting look serious and substantial, while also lending legitimacy to whichever policies her government needs to boost back home. Wong's least popular colleague, Climate Change and Energy Minister Chris Bowen, has been locked up in the Witness Protection Program for the duration of the still unannounced election campaign. But if you thought that that meant we get a respite from his catchphrase, renewable energy superpower, think again. Wong gives it a spin when describing her government's plan to, quote, "attract and enable both global and domestic investment to help make Australia a renewable energy superpower and strengthen our economic security." Well, you don't need to be a wheelchair-bound pensioner who has been abused by an Indian taxi driver to see that Wong is being taken for a ride here. Indians know an opportunity when they see one. Prime Minister Narendra Modi told the COP26 summit in Glasgow a few years ago that the major polluting countries should make $1 trillion available to developing countries like his, who were supposedly wearing the consequences of climate change. Quote, "Today it's important to track climate finance, just like we track the progress of climate mitigation," he said with his trademark amiability. Against that, flicking India $30 million to help them build solar panels and pumped hydro, as a new roadmap does, seems like a bargain, especially as it also adds desperately needed credibility to the ailing renewable industry back home. Never mind that Indians are hardly renowned for their environmental cleanliness or that they are planning to triple their nuclear capability by 2032. Those details are to a new roadmap what booster shots are for people who died suddenly. In return, we allow a virtually unlimited number of Indian students to live here and drive Ubers, ride delivery bikes and work behind the counter at 7-Elevens. The diaspora is a key part of India's interaction with the world, and for good reason. The diaspora has already relieved India, which is already overcrowded, of 35 million people and counting. Better still, those people between them send about $129 billion back to their families every year. The Australian portion of that is about 5.5 billion Australian dollars. It's a net benefit to India that people like Wong barely even realise. Wong glosses over the cultural exchange bit with some tropes about sport and artistic collaboration, both of which, if they exist at all, are heavily overshadowed by typically unedifying encounters with the aforementioned drivers, riders and shopkeepers. Even by a new roadmap's low levels of plausibility, the cultural and sports sections of the report are particularly unconvincing, especially given Wong's barely concealed indifference to mainstream Australian culture. To be fair to Wong, she is not the only Western leader to fall for Modi's charm offensive. Modi was the first significant world leader to visit Donald Trump after his recent return to the White House. You can understand Trump's keenness to accommodate Modi. Trump sees everything as a deal and has a tendency to see people as economic units that can, under the right circumstances, offer some sort of benefit for his own domestic constituents. But Wong is different. She just wants to be part of the globalist club. If that means transferring wealth to India and turning Melbourne into Mumbai and Brisbane into Bangalore, what does she care?